New items of discussion, you want to go first?
Yeah, I have two things. I was hoping that Commissioner Morrison would be here today because one of the items is related to her. I haven't heard from Commissioner Morrison. I don't know if she's going to be here today at all, so let's continue with what I was going to do. So I have a statement that I prepared that I'm going to read as a part of the meeting, as part of the public record. We've had many such statements at this meeting, so I don't think that it's out of the ordinary. And I'll read the statement and then we'll go from there. So today I'd like to address an issue of leadership and work ethic in the Commissioner's office. It's been clear to most that attend our meetings that every month or so there's some type of controversy or discomfort that takes place. This issue has become quite routine for the staff, other elected officials, the media, and anyone else who regularly attends our meetings. Most of these seemingly uncomfortable situations involve Commissioner Morrison sharing some revelation or perceived embarrassing mistake made by one of her fellow commissioners or a staff member that is out of favor in order to attack and humiliate her target. In every case, this is done without any warning or notice and is done to rattle the target's cage in the hopes that they make a mistake or look foolish. To this point, these barrages have been quite successful, as the subjects, myself included, generally stammer and do their best to hold it together during the course of the interrogation. For those involved in our regular meetings at this point, we walk into these conference rooms holding our breath, wondering what the next assault will involve and who will take the brunt of the beating. It can be quite stressful in a meeting being recorded for public review. As soon as an apparent attack begins, the looks of frustration and irritation are almost universal among the staff and other officials in attendance. It's important to note that in every case, Commissioner Morrison generally states that her revelations are done in an attempt to shed light on a situation or that she's the voice of the people tearing the lid off an otherwise secretive and corrupt bureaucratic mess and exposing the sordid conspiracy beneath. For Commissioner Cafferl and myself, we are usually painted as bullies and political players who are working behind the scenes, making deals and rubbing elbows with other corrupt bureaucrats. When we aren't corrupt dictators, we're incompetent fools, ready to gamble away the county's assets and the taxpayers' dollars. In every situation, there is little actual truth to our accusations, and what generally follows is a simple explanation of the process by which decisions are made. It's important to note that this pattern goes beyond our public meetings to the private as well, where Commissioner Cafferl and I and members of the staff have to routinely defend ourselves from Commissioner Morrison's various judgments. This strategy generally has a negative effect on morale and creates a crisis of leadership in our office where in place of confidence, cooperation, and leadership, there is fear, confusion, and frustration. I'm here today, however, to state for the record that in one case, Commissioner Morrison was absolutely right about us. There is a secret we've kept for a while now, and it's time to finally share it. We've kept it because we were afraid of what might happen if anyone found out or if we were forced to reveal it. And the community deserves an apology from us, as they've had a right to know the truth of what goes on in this office for a while now. That secret is the fact that Commissioner Morrison does not regularly show up for work and hasn't produced anything meaningful in her role as a commissioner. I've tried desperately to figure out a way to address this issue over the past year, and I've always come up short, thinking to myself that we could maintain the status quo in order to avoid an unpleasant exchange. After more unpleasantness recently, it is my intention to lay bare the truth and do my best to rectify my error and move the county forward. I believe this county needs real leadership and accountability for its elected officials, not broken promises. I want to be clear that I do not make these accusations flippantly or without a great deal of thought. I intend to support all the statements I'm going to make with simple facts and clearly illustrate the true nature of this problem. First, I will discuss general attendance, and second, attendance at important leadership meetings. And by the way, this is going to take a few minutes, so bear with me. Over the past 2 months, in what little spare time I have, I've tracked Commissioner Morrison's attendance at the courthouse using timesheets I developed, which are available for anyone that's interested in them. I will provide a copy to the newspaper as well. I've concluded that Commissioner Morrison has worked an average of 7 hours a week over the past year. We commissioners are regularly scheduled and paid to work 35 hours a week, despite some who believe this is a part-time job. It is not, if you want to be good at it. At this rate, I have estimated that Commissioner Morrison would probably gross around $40,000 of pay with nothing being produced for the taxpayers. Her attendance has been consistent since spring of last year. This, of course, after her campaign promise to be a full-time commissioner. She may dispute certain days and times on these sheets, but she cannot dispute the overall numbers. You could also easily ask staff in the courthouse who they see here on a regular basis, and I believe very strongly that the responses will corroborate what I am offering as an estimate here today. The issue is so pervasive, Commissioner Kafferlin and I have been pushed by the press to make a statement on the situation in the form of a series of questions which generally alluded to Commissioner Morrison's lack of presence at meetings and a lack of production. To transition to the issue of leadership and attendance at important meetings, there is a plethora of examples I will share. To start, last year during budget season, Commissioner Morrison missed several of our scheduled budget meetings with directors and contributed little to the process. On the final day we were preparing the budget for public review, she demanded we completely defund the WCCBI, and when we refused to, chastise us for that decision. Although she eventually voted for the budget, she stated plainly that she was in favor of defunding the WCCBI and transferring the money to the IDA, which is the Industrial Development Authority. This proposal was due, according to her, to the idea that WCCBI operated behind closed doors and was unaccountable to the public. The IDA, on the other hand, was essentially a pass-through mechanism used to give nonprofits tax-exempt loans and had been dormant for several years. She stated it was her goal to reconstitute the IDA and use it as a tool for development. This statement was made with the idea of moving WCCBI funds to the IDA. Ms. Morrison felt so strongly about the issue, she paid for a half-page ad on the cover of the Warren Guide, which surprised Commissioner Kafferlin and I, disparaging the WCCBI and again stating the need to transfer funds to the IDA. Not long after, due to a WCCBI initiative, the first meeting of the IDA in years took place to provide a $6 million tax-exempt loan for the Rouse in order to expand their services to seniors. The meeting was scheduled weeks in advance and all commissioners were invited. Although Ms. Morrison had previously expressed an interest in reviving the IDA, she did not show up. Commissioner Kafferlin and myself were the only representatives from the Commissioner's office. The reporter in attendance was visibly confused by the situation and asked where Ms. Morrison was. We said we didn't know, and no excuse was ever given. With Ms. Morrison's absence, it was decided at that meeting that I would be the designated commissioner to sign the paperwork finalizing the loan on behalf of the Rouse. I did sign it at the Rouse Administrative Complex a week or two later. As you'll see as I continue, this is a common practice. And I would also say that you have never heard of the IDA since that meeting. Now, I'd like to turn to WCCBI meetings and other regular meetings that provide an opportunity for leadership. All commissioners are voting members at WCCBI board meetings. If Commissioner Morrison wanted to change the culture of the WCCBI, attending the board meetings and stating her case would be the perfect venue. Instead, Ms. Morrison has never attended a single WCCBI meeting and chooses to simply disparage them in the press. And when given the opportunity, Commissioner Kafferlin and I, however, I'm misreading this, chooses to simply disparage them in the press when given the opportunity. Commissioner Kafferlin and I, however, regularly attend WCCBI board meetings as voting members. As a member of the Rouse Board, another responsibility of a Warren County Commissioner, Commissioner Morrison has missed meetings, phoned into meetings, and rarely been seen at organizational festivities and events. The clearest absence was during the process of replacing outgoing CEO Jason Diley. A headhunting agency put together a list of qualified candidates to interview for the job. Commissioner Morrison skipped all of the interviews and showed up at the end when we had 2 candidates to pick from in order to give her 2 cents. This with the understanding that selecting an organization's chief executive is one of the most basic fundamental responsibilities of a board of directors. This pattern plays out in every regular leadership meeting we attend. Council of Governments meetings are very important for coordination between the county government and the 27 municipalities in Warren County. Either Commissioner Catherlin or I or both of us have attended every COG meeting since the beginning of our term. Commissioner Morrison has not attended one. At one COG meeting last fall, the discussion became heated when a township supervisor demanded to know why they never see Commissioner Morrison. I responded, there are many people that miss this meeting. She's very busy like the rest. Let's not single out one person for missing this meeting. That was one of many times I've defended Commissioner Morrison's absence to other officials and community members. Commissioner Catherine and I have attended Planning Commission meetings, RDA meetings, Blight Committee meetings, all without ever seeing Commissioner Morrison. We were invited to give presentations on our vision for the county by the High Ed Council at an Eggs and Issues breakfast event. We were invited months in advance. Commissioner Catherine and I attended and put together very detailed PowerPoint presentations. Commissioner Morrison declined to attend without any reason. These absences also affect the workforce negatively. Last year, we scheduled the first county Christmas party in decades. It was paid for by donations from the Commissioner's office and other department heads. Everyone that attended had a wonderful time, but again, without any excuse or notice, I had to explain Ms. Morrison's absence to staff who asked repeatedly, where is the chairman? I told them she had an important family issue to deal with. It's important to note that Commissioner Morrison neither attended nor contributed financially to that event. For the past 3 months, the Commissioner's office has hosted a coffee and donuts event on Friday mornings for 10 random staff members, paid for by Commissioner Catherlin and myself. They come to the meeting, which lasts roughly an hour and a half, and drink coffee, talk with and get to know the commissioners and share concerns they have. These events have been hugely popular and turned into a great team building exercise. Of the 14 meetings we've had, Commissioner Morrison has attended one and showed up half an hour late and left half an hour early. On several occasions, staff have confessed at their disappointment due to her absence. They feel like they were not important enough for her to attend. The clearest example of Commissioner Morrison's, or the clearest recent example of Commissioner Morrison's lack of commitment to the workforce was her decision to skip all but one meeting we had in the past month and a half with one of our largest unions to negotiate their contract for next year. The one meeting she did attend with the union, she showed up late and left after 15 or 20 minutes to take a phone call. Commissioner Catherlin and I negotiated the AFSCME union contract without any input from Commissioner Morrison whatsoever. This again is a fundamental responsibility of a board of commissioners that has been completely ignored by the chairman of our board. We recently conducted mid-year budget meetings with department directors to gauge the health of the county's finances. Commissioner Morrison only attended a couple of the meetings, missing most. At this point, I could go on and on with similar examples. I'll sum up the situation by relaying that I've lost count of the number of times I've been asked, where is Commissioner Morrison? At this point, I simply say I'm not sure. I want to stress at this time that I hold Commissioner Catherlin in high regard. Politically, you could not find two more diametrically opposed people than we. However, we share the understanding that opposing sides need to work together and compromise if anything is to be accomplished. Commissioner Morrison has tried at times to say we are excluding her, or that we are in lockstep and say, what's the point? They aren't going to let me do anything. This couldn't be further from the truth. First of all, there is no shortage of work here. Anybody that works in this office knows that. There's tons of work to do. Second, Ben and I constantly disagree. Anyone who was present for last year's budget talks or this year's union contract negotiations, and you can ask Keith this, knows we engage in a number of heated discussions and advocating our positions. You can look no further than the recent vote on the Conowingo Township zoning regulations to see the clear line drawn when Commissioner Morrison and Commissioner Clafferlin opposed my view. To pretend like Commissioner Clafferlin and I are in lockstep is pure fiction. We simply know how to work together and work towards compromise. Fundamentally, I know he has Warren County's best interests at heart, and I know he works hard here because he cares about this community and wants to see it grow. We may disagree on the methods to improve our way of life, but we understand that no progress can be made if we can't set our differences aside and meet somewhere in the middle. In closing, this county is starving for leadership. And our office, the Commissioner's office, is not providing it. not at the level that I think that it should. Certainly not to the extent that it could. Between Ms. Morrison's absences and her regular unprovoked attacks at public meetings, the Commissioner's office appears in disarray to some. At the very least, there appears to be a vacuum of leadership and a lack of production that makes it difficult to build momentum and create meaningful gains. This county needs leadership. It needs leadership now. We can't wait. Every moment we delay, we will fall further behind. It is time for this administration to again change directions and take on a new form to produce greater results for the community it serves. So it is with this statement that I recommend that we put the chairmanship of this board on the agenda of our next public meeting on Wednesday, September 13th, in order to determine what direction this board will go in the future and how it will function in the remainder of this term. May I get the support of one of my fellow commissioners for this initiative?
Thank you. It's up to Commissioner Morrison, of course, as the chair to determine whether it goes on the agenda officially. But with that compelling case, I would have to agree that it should be a point of discussion. Thank you very much for all the compliments, by the way, and I feel the same way about you and your heart for the community. I think it's fair to say that no one wanted that statement to have to be read, that no one wants to see controversy amongst commissioners. In fact, one of the phrases I hear most in this community is, why can't the commissioners just get along? Which irks me because I think people don't understand what's actually going on, and now I think they might have a better picture of what that looks like. I'm known to say that that politics is about finding the upshot in an unfortunate situation, and I think we're going to have to find out what that is. The chairmanship to me means very little. I don't think that constitutionally it comes with hardly any more authority except for in state of emergencies and of course setting the agenda. So I don't know if that will be the solution to the problem, but I think that at least among the staff it seems like they look to the chair for leadership, and you're right that there is a vacuum. I think we need to focus on what the commissioner's role is, and of course the primary constitutional function is the fiscal one. But I think we're also the only group of people that sit on countless boards in this county and outside the county. We're kind of the glue, I suppose, that connects so many different organizations to a common mission. So as we think about what it looks like going forward, no matter what happens or who the chair is, I think we need to define what the role of the chairman looks like, what kind of powers and or authorities are granted with it, and then additionally, I think we need to refocus on what our core purpose is as a commissioner's office, which is fundamentally, in my opinion, to develop the area and heal communities, whether that be through children and youth services or suffering veterans or any of the populations in the jail, and so many other people and communities that we touch. That's what we need to focus on going forward. Well, thank you. Do you have anything else?
Just a few things I was thinking about really quick. First of all, I was under the impression that Commissioner Morris would be here today. This was not done because I had any inclination that she wasn't going to be here today. I sent a notification to her in advance letting her know that I was going to make this statement, so she's aware of it. So I just didn't want it to be, like it's some weird kind of off-day situation, first of all. Second of all, I made this decision based in large part because of a couple of conversations that I've had recently where someone comes to me and they say, why aren't you saying anything about this? Why aren't you doing anything about this? I had one person say that, and I had made the excuse that, like, listen, there are these situations in other counties around the state. There are other counties where commissioners don't show up, don't get involved, don't produce. There's plenty of counties where commissioners don't agree with each other. I don't know whether it's the contents of the setup of the office or what, but it's very common. And the person said to me, but I live in this county. And I thought about it to myself, it's not hard as an elected official to kind of be separated from the bunch, and start to think like an elected official. And I tried to sit down and think, if I was a taxpayer who had supported somebody for office and they were not showing up for work, would I want to know? And the truth is, absolutely. You know, I can't think of the number of people that have said to me, I didn't know that, I should know that. And I probably would have went along, you know, I mean, obviously this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. You know, but it's the other defining element of it is that Commissioner Morrison, and I'm serious about this, comes to these meetings and with an agenda to attack people. And it's happened repeatedly, and we're never told, like, this is what the agenda of the meeting is going to be. This is what we're going to do. And for people that attend this meeting, nobody that's attended this meeting can tell me that they don't see that from a mile away. You know, and essentially what's happened is it's made it very difficult to, you know, conduct business in the county the way that we should. And I think that the taxpayers and I think that the people in this county deserve a greater level of leadership than they're receiving. And, you know, I think it's our job at this point to try to, you know, change directions and move, move and do something different. I think we owe it to them. I have other more positive things to discuss from this.
Okay, go ahead.
Although this will, in my opinion, end up being a positive thing in the end. So,
do you know how other counties, I know Elk County rotates the chairmanship.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something that I've thought about in the past. You know, it's funny once you get into this and you start talking to all of the other commissioners within the other counties. I think that Elk County's setup is actually pretty smart. Basically, they have a rotating chairmanship, so every year and a half,
Every 16 months.
Every 16 months, they switch the chairmanship. And I think it's perhaps a really good way to take some of the perceived weight out of the position. You know, I don't technically, coming into this job, I never considered the chairmanship to be that important. You know, I thought it was I felt like it was the person that chairs the meetings, kind of sets the agenda and does a few things. But many people in the community, many people in the courthouse view it as a serious leadership position. And so that's part of the issue that we have too, you know, with someone that's in absence is people come and they want to talk to the chair. Well, what happens when the chair isn't here? What happens when Ben and I are the ones constantly talking to those people about whatever's going on? It's not hard to make the case that we're, you know, acting inappropriately or without notice or whatever, and it creates confusion, you know. So I think that that's part of this discussion too. Is what does the chairmanship mean going forward? You know, I think that in the future we should have a discussion about perhaps rotating the chairmanship between the commissioners or having some kind of setup like that. I think it would kind of take some of the weight out of it. Maybe also some of the built-in competition between the commissioners. Like, you know,
Right.
You know, so.
Let everyone give a chance to.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that you're going to get a chance either way, then maybe that whole like tug of war that you can get into is alleviated.
Right. I know a lot of other counties that do rotate, and several counties that it doesn't go by the same way that our county has decided to traditionally appoint the chairman based on top vote getters.
Well, I think there's one. I can't remember if it's Adams County that does like. You know, whatever the majority party is, one gets
and then they
2 years, and the other gets it 2 years.
Yeah, I've seen that before as well.
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know, I mean,
And I think maybe this is just because I was less than 100 votes different from the chair, but it does kind of bother me at times.
Yeah. Well,
I think everyone should have a shot. We all three got elected.
Yeah. I'd be in favor of anything that would, you know, reduce the, you know, level of competition and the politics of the job. You know, it's the least fun part of it, to be honest. So, do you have, okay, so the other thing that I wanted to discuss is, there's a panel copy too, is I'd like to discuss this organization that I've been meeting with and talking to called Archive Social. As a part of our ongoing effort to revamp the internet, open records policy, and everything else, it's come to my attention that that's a different one than the one you got. There's two that look the same. It's come to my attention that one of the weak points that we have, or I shouldn't say one of the weak points, one of the things that we're going to need to address going forward if we're going to continue to use any type of social media is records keeping related to social media and the ability to provide records as a part of an open records policy. Currently, we do not have, social media is not a part of our open records policy, and really we need to get to a point where, as part of the revamp, that we incorporate it. Now, I want to try to see if there are any other companies doing this. This is the one that's the most common, and probably the most comprehensive. And just to give you some background on, kind of some of the reasons behind this, is that right now on Facebook, we have a Facebook profile, and then we have our own individual Facebook pages. Like you have a Commissioner Kaplan page, I have a Commissioner Eggleston page. And I would really like at some point to expand the properties, but I don't really want to do it until we have like a policy in place for everything in order to share information. If someone goes on our Facebook page and, types something up, makes a threat, and then deletes it, it would be really difficult for us at this point to get a hold of it, in real time. And there are a lot of different elements to that. If one of us, if like an elected official made a comment on a page that was inappropriate and deleted it, it would be very difficult for us to get a hold of it. A couple of the examples they put on here were, for instance, if the town has a catastrophe, if there was a tornado or something and there was a natural disaster and they had 1,000 comments on a particular post related to an alert message, and there was something in there that needed to be archived or that was right to note, it would be almost impossible for us to dig it up. Like we'd have to spend literally hours to do screen captures. The other thing that I've included is a copy of a final determination on a lawsuit related to open records and right to know requests of Facebook content that was there was a dispute related to social media, so I think it's important to read that as well. This solution is generally I felt pretty reasonable. Right now it's at $200 a month in order to archive all records associated with social media properties. We could have up to 10. It's important to note that we don't just have like a county Facebook page. We have the 911, like the emergency management Facebook page, the sheriff's Facebook page, and a lot of the things. Those are probably more prone, I think, even to right to know and potential, legal action. So I'm providing this information in the hopes that you'll take a look at it. I would like to figure out a way to budget something for social media next year. I think that we could potentially take the money out of the increased revenue from the bed tax. Since we do use the social media channel in order to promote the county, I think that seems like an appropriate use of some of that money. Mm-hmm. I know the increases that we've received is far greater than $200 a month.
Is that what this costs?
Yeah. So in order to archive everything, it has a very simple setup in order to pull records from it. It's built for public institutions, so it's very complete. I think that with the number of accounts that we allocated, we could probably take a few other pages on for entities that are related to us in order to, that are right to know eligible. That's something that I wanted to bring to the table in order to take a look at it. I probably even make the case to do it sooner just because these lawsuits related to social media are starting to get more prevalent in Pennsylvania. And like I said, if we're going to expand, especially if we're going to add other accounts in order to do promotion and further expand the systems that we have already, I think it's going to be really important prior to that to have like a system in place and an open records policy that is modernized to go along with it.
Anything else? Any
Nope.
project updates?
We're putting the boiler and the air handlers out to bid. The ad should be in the newspaper this week. It was in today. Okay. I haven't had a chance to run through it yet. All the spec documents are put together and ready to go for it. I'm really hoping that we have some good bids on the boiler. I think that we're going to end up spending far less than we had anticipated on it. Originally when we were looking at it, we felt like it was going to be $200,000 job. I'm hoping that we can do it for 70 or under, but we'll see. Probably what's going to happen is that they're going to phase the boilers, so they're going to do one at a time. Especially if the construction goes into October, in case the temperature starts waning, or starts reducing. So we'll have one boiler at least set up for that stretch at a time. The air handlers, at this point, it's not as much of a concern that be done immediately. Basically, we're building it for the spring. And for those that don't know, the air handlers in the jail, the air handler in the jail needs to be replaced. This has led to huge heating and air conditioning problems over there, where the office during the summer, the administrative office of the jail is like 900 degrees. We had to have temporary air conditioning in there. As it turns out, that the air handler that was in there, for whatever reason, was double the size that it needed to be. And so it was also pumping a lot of condensation and humidity into the facility as well. So there's going to be a smaller unit installed, and that should reduce the humidity and be more efficient. So, and then, what else is going on? I think that's everything. I'm sure there's something else that I've talked about.
Okay. I don't have a lot of project updates except for the public safety fair is this Saturday. Everything's going pretty well in terms of planning. Thank you very much for doing all the graphic design work for it.
Pleasure.
All right. In terms of schedule, I'm not going to be able to make it to the Northwest County Commissioners meeting, which is like Tuesday, right?
Is that next Tuesday?
That's October.
It's another month.
Oh.
I was like, I hope it isn't, because
Yeah.
I'm like overbooked.
I don't know why I had that on my schedule for next week. My other schedule, not yours. And planning on going to Pittsburgh to the Penn State, the Pitt. I could totally get killed by Pitt people for that. I would be going to their elected officials conference, which I think is going to emphasize opioids again this year. And I'm also meeting with the department heads that are under the Commissioner's office only, starting with, I believe, fiscal today, going through everybody over the course of the next couple of weeks. This is somewhat in preparation for our budget meetings, which will start around then, mostly because I want to understand what kind of projects they're going to be bringing to the table. I also want to understand better the timeline that the offices go through every year in terms of what has to be done, what needs to be reported, what's the ebb and the flow of workload and that sort of thing, as well as talk about the functions and people, succession planning, that sort of thing. So I'll be doing those over the course of the next couple of weeks, and I'll bring it back to a work session and report back on it. And maybe if the courts and the other elected officials want to join in, then I could help facilitate something similar for them in the future. I just want to start with our people first. That's it. Any public comments? Or staff comments, I guess. All right, meeting adjourned.